Welcome back to the program. I want to first address this notion, this lie, this deceptive practice by the left that is stating that somehow President Trump is losing support among the MAGA faithful. This can't be any further from the truth, okay? There are millions of his supporters that every day watch what's happening and say, this is exactly what we voted for. So what this is, essentially, is a Psyops by the left that doesn't have power, that won a couple of special elections, and now all of a sudden thinks that the MAGA movement is over and that we're all going to just completely abandon the president and sign on to their communist ideologies and policies, which, of course, we know that's not going to be the case. So you're seeing headlines like, MAGA cracks are starting to show, right? Or you're seeing some left-wing registered voters only poll without likely voters in a very small portion that say MAGA America is no longer with the president on most issues and is moving away from him. This is a psyops that the left is doing on purpose because they don't have power and they've got nothing left, okay? Now, are some things that have been going on affecting maybe some of his support? Yeah, but it has nothing to do with the left. It has to do with the economy, okay? It's always going to be about the economy. That's why I don't look at the polls, certainly not this early, and that's why I ignore all of the attempts by the left to try to pull us apart and to try to divide us, because as a party, if we're divided, then we can't be successful. And so these notions that somehow the Trump MAGA base is abandoning him is just ridiculous. Now, did he have to say what he said the other day as far as Rob Reiner was concerned? No. He could have left out the whole Trump derangement syndrome part, and he could have just said, look, we didn't agree politically, but it's a terrible thing that happened. My thoughts and prayers are with his family. End of story. Next question. He didn't have to talk about the TDS and all that. Certainly not when the body was not even buried yet. Okay, so I will say that I thought that was an issue. But the whole thing that we're losing is just ridiculous. Okay, it's ridiculous. Now today, J.D. Vance, Vice President Vance, was asked about this absolute hit piece by Vanity Fair against Susie Wiles. I guess she sat down with Vanity Fair. That was her first mistake, and maybe that does show a lack of judgment. Why would you sit down with Vanity Fair in the first place, knowing that they're going to do this to you? But I digress. But J.D. Vance was asked about it today, and well, of course, in typical J.D. Vance fashion, was able to handle it perfectly. Listen to this.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Same to you.
Unfortunately, I have to ask a bit of an off-topic question from affordability because news events do intervene, and that is the interviews that White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles gave to Vanity Fair, in which she's quoted as referring to you as, excuse me, and again, not my words, sir, but a conspiracy theorist of a decade, and described your transformation from someone who once opposed President Trump to now his vice president as an act of political expediency. And I'd like to give you the chance to respond to that, sir.
Well, first of all, if Susie, I'll trust what you said. I haven't looked at the article. I of course have heard about it. But conspiracy theorist, sometimes I am a conspiracy theorist, but I only believe in the conspiracy theories that are true.
Yeah.
This is literally a master class in kicking the ass of left-wing prostitutes. Listen.
And by the way, Susie and I have joked in private and in public about that for a long time. For example, I believed in the crazy conspiracy theory back in 2020 that it was stupid to mask 3-year-olds at the height of the COVID pandemic, that we should actually let them develop some language skills. I believed in this crazy conspiracy theory that the media and the government were covering up the fact that Joe Biden was clearly unable to do the job. And I believed in the conspiracy theory that Joe Biden was trying to throw his political opponents in jail rather than win an argument against his political opponents. So, at least on some of these conspiracy theories, it turns out that a conspiracy theory is just something that was true 6 months before the media admitted it. And that's my understanding. Now, look, I do want to say something about Susie, though, because, again, having not read this article, Susie is a person I've come to know very, very well. And, you know, a lot of you probably ask yourself, what is it like behind the scenes? What's going on, actually, behind the scenes of the Trump administration? And I'll tell you, the president is exactly in private who he is in public. Like, I'll tell you a little story. Actually a week or so ago, I walk into the Oval Office, and Marco and I are sitting there talking with the president about something. He says, stop. And he looks at our shoes and says, you guys have terrible shoes. So he goes and gets a shoe catalog. And remember, this is the Christmas season, so the president's got some holiday cheer. He goes and gets a shoe catalog and gets his favorite shoes and orders like 4 pairs of shoes for me and 4 pairs of shoes for Marco, because he's like, you know, we need our vice president or secretary of state to look their very best. And, you know, then we went back to talking about whatever major, you know, international issue we were talking about. Again, he is exactly in private who he is in public. That's not true of most people in Washington, D.C. It's not. And I've seen so many people who will say one thing to the president's face, Democrats and Republicans, and then will do the exact opposite behind the scenes. You know why I really... You know what they are. And you know why I really love Susie Wiles? Because Susie is who she is in the president's presence. She's the same exact person when the president isn't around. I've never seen Susie Wiles say something to the president and then go and counteract him or subvert his will behind the scenes. And that's what you want in a staffer. Because as much as I love Susie, the American people didn't elect any staffer. They elected the president of the United States. And what you want... And what you want in a staffer is a person who understands they are there to effectuate the will of the American people, and they're there to follow the orders of the duly elected commander-in-chief of the United States. And Susie Wiles, we have our disagreements. We agree on much more than we disagree, but I've never seen her be disloyal to the President of the United States, and that makes her the best White House chief of staff that I think the President could ask for.
So there you have it. Now, first thing I'll say is good luck to any Democrat trying to debate him in 2028. You're going to get your clocks cleaned, okay? He's articulate. He's smart. He is professional. He doesn't go too low. He hits you where he needs to hit you, but he also will give you background and layers of hits and everything else. He is a true political assassin when it comes to the ability to be able to debate. So we saw that, of course, with Tampon Timmy and the Knucklehead and all that with that debate. So just imagine how good he's going to be in 2028 when it really, really counts. So I'm pretty confident that he's going to do very, very well with that. And he will resonate with the American people because he has common sense. And again, he's also told the truth with President Trump, and he has, of course, a record to run on. But that's the first thing I wanted to say. Now, what exactly happened and what was said? Well, it was quite a bit, actually, if you want to know the truth. They were talking about a lot of different things, and apparently Susie Wiles basically just kind of let loose and talked about what she thinks of President Trump, of J.D. Vance, of many other people, and some of the things that was said, I'll get to here in just a second. Where is it? Right here. So, obviously, when you do an interview with Vanity Fair, you already know that you're getting a hit piece. So, I guess my first thought would be the lack of judgment by Susie Wiles to sit down with Vanity Fair to begin with. And if you were going to sit down with a prostitute organization like Vanity Fair, why wouldn't you insist on recording every single thing in the entire interview and let them know that we're recording everything on our end. So anything you redact, anything that you change, anything that you take out of context, we're going to drop the original if you do it. And that's how you hold these prostitutes accountable when you do news with those organizations that can't be trusted. Excuse me. I'm at the tail end of this thing. So during this conversation, she basically said that Trump has the personality of a, quote, alcoholic, even though we know he doesn't drink at all. So when that was brought up, President Trump came back and said, well, she's right. If I was a drinker, which I'm not, I would have an alcoholic type of personality because I'm very possessive and I don't have impulse control. Is basically what he said in response to it. And he also said that he trusts Susie and he knows that obviously Vanity Fair is a terrible organization and publication. Then there was more. There was talks about Vance. And again, she called Vance, according to this Vanity Fair article, which again was probably taken out of context, a conspiracy theorist with more than a decade who then converted to Trumpism based purely on politics rather than people. Now, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. I doubt she said that he did this for political expediency. That sounds like something that Vanity Fair would have added in there, okay? And then, apparently, she said about Russ Vought, who is the budget director, White House budget director. She called him a, quote, right-wing zealot. And then she said that Elon Musk was a, quote, drug addict and avid ketamine user. She also then reportedly slammed Pam Bondi for mishandling the Epstein files, which, of course, is indeed fair criticism. And then she said something about Marco Rubio, calling him a loyal custodian, basically. So in other words, saying that he's going to do whatever he's going to do, whatever the president tells him to do. And you know what? That's what a Secretary of State is supposed to do, just like Vance pointed out. She also added, I think anybody that is paying any amount of attention to the government has ever been paid attention to USAID believes, as I do, that they do very good work. Now, I don't know why she said this. USAID does not do very good work. 99% of it is grift and theft. Very little of it is actually good work. So, not sure what's going on with that. The whole thing with Elon, I don't know. How could you be a multi-billionaire and be strung out on drugs like ketamine all day? I don't know if that's true or not, nor do I care. This was more, in my opinion, and of course Trump's already said this, this was more a let's gin up some garbage and try to pit everybody against each other, and let's make sure that everybody is divided so that if they're divided, we can be conquered. And that's what the left's strategy is. That's why you're hearing all of these things about how the Hispanic vote is abandoning Trump, and therefore the Texas redistricting is not going to happen because they're worried that if they redistrict and it's going to be more of a Hispanic district, that they're somehow going to go against Trump. Look, the bottom line is it's too early to have these types of conversations, okay? It's too early. We have $18 trillion coming into the economy. We have manufacturing coming back. We have rates being lowered. We've got the term of Powell up, hopefully very soon, I think in the beginning, the first quarter or whatever. And then from there, we have other people that are doing other things to try to make the economy better. They're working through FHA. They're getting rid of a lot of these illegals that had houses, and they're taking these homes now that they've literally left. I'm hearing in places like Texas, there are neighborhoods with just abandoned homes. In other words, these people were either deported, or B, they knew they were going to be deported, and so they left everything. They left everything and they just took off. And so there are homes now on the market that are in foreclosure because of that. So there's going to be that ripple effect throughout the economy. But here's the good news. If we had a housing crisis, I think we know why. Because all these damn illegal aliens were buying homes through these government programs, and they were not being checked. And they didn't care about citizenship under the auto pen. So you're going to have a lot of these foreclosures coming up as these people have been deported. That's a good thing, because then those houses will go back on the market and Americans will be able to purchase those homes. Okay? So let's cool it with all the, crash and burn, doom and gloom. It's over. We're not going to win the... Look, let's not even go there. Okay? If we have this conversation in May, June, July, then yes, I would say at that point we may have something to worry about. But right now, it's just too early. And I think, as Jason Miller, one of the Trump advisors, said, the economy in 2026 is going to be incredible. So let's see what happens. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.